December 19th, 1979. Cedar Rapids, Iowa, 4 a.m. The brand new Westdale Mall is completely desolate, except for one lone vehicle parked under the flickering amber glow of a street lamp. It's a 1972 Buick Electra. From the outside, it looks like a car simply left behind in the freezing winter night. But when police officers shine their flashlights through the frosted windows, what they find inside will shatter the innocence of this small Midwestern town forever. Inside the car is 18-year-old Michelle Martinko. She hasn't just been murdered. She has been subjected to an attack of such sheer rage and brutality that seasoned detectives have to step away from the vehicle to catch their breath. The interior is a bloodbath. There is no robbery. There is no sexual assault. There is only violence, no sexual assault. There is only violence. For 39 years, the monster who did this walked free. He went to work. He raised a family. He lived right under their noses, blending in perfectly with the rest of the community. He thought he had committed the perfect crime. He thought he had wiped his hands clean. He was wrong, because the very thing he left behind in that frozen Buick would wait nearly 4 decades to hunt him down. Not with a gun, not with an eyewitness, but with a plastic pizza restaurant straw. In the fall of 1979, Cedar Rapids was the kind of town where people still left their front doors unlocked. Neighbors knew each other by name, and violent crime was something you only saw on the evening news from big cities. And at the center of this idyllic community was Michelle Martinko. She was the golden girl of Kennedy High School, a talented twirler, a singer in the choir, well-liked and fiercely independent. She had a bright future ahead of her, dreaming of interior design and moving beyond the borders of her small town. On the evening of December 19th, Michelle attended a high school choir banquet. After it ended, she had a specific mission. She wanted to buy a new winter coat she had been saving up for. So she borrowed her parents' Buick and drove to the Westdale Mall. It was just a few days before Christmas. The mall was packed with holiday shoppers, echoing with festive music and laughter. Dozens of people saw her. She bought her coat, grabbed a quick snack, and walked out of those glass doors into the freezing night at around 9 p.m. And then, she simply vanished. By midnight, her parents were frantic. Michelle was never late. She wasn't the type to run away. By 2 a.m., the panic set in, and they called the police. By 4 a.m., the police found the Buick in the mall parking lot. The autopsy would soon reveal a terrifying truth. Michelle had fought for her life. She fought so hard, in fact, that she managed to wound her attacker. Amidst the horrific scene, investigators found blood on the gear shift and the dress she was wearing. Blood that did not belong to Michelle. It belonged to the killer. But in 1979, DNA testing didn't exist. That blood was just a stain. For it to become a weapon against the killer, the world's technology would have to catch up to his crime, and he had a 39-year head start. The question was, who would want to slaughter a high school girl with no enemies? The answer would tear the town apart. The days following Michelle's murder were consumed by a suffocating paranoia. Cedar Rapids was no longer a safe haven. It was a hunting ground. Parents locked their doors, teens were escorted to their cars, and everyone looked over their shoulder. Investigators had a single, undeniable piece of evidence: the killer's blood. The DNA from the gear shift in Michelle's dress was preserved. But remember, this is 1979. They could only test for blood type. They knew the killer was male, and they knew his blood type. That was it. So they started hunting the old-fashioned way. They interviewed her ex-boyfriends. Cleared. They interviewed her classmates. Cleared. But then, a terrifying lead emerged. Multiple women reported being stalked by a creepy, aggressive man at the Westdale Mall in the days leading up to the murder. Witnesses helped create a composite sketch of a man with a sinister, angular face. The police tracked him down. He was a local drifter with a history of violence. When brought in for questioning, he was nervous, evasive, and his alibi was full of holes. Investigators thought they had their monster. They even strapped him to a polygraph machine. And he failed it. The town braced for an arrest. But there was a catch. They tested his blood type against the blood found in the Buick. It wasn't a match. The polygraph was a dead end. The creepy guy at the mall was just a creep, not a killer. It was a brutal red herring that sent the investigation crashing into a brick wall. Over the next few years, detectives interviewed over 80 people. They chased down phantom leads across state lines. But the ghost had vanished back into the shadows. The 1980s gave way to the 90s. The Westdale Mall changed management. The teenagers who went to school with Michelle grew up, got married, and had kids of their own. But for the Martinko family, time had frozen on December 19th, 1979. The psychological toll was devastating. Michelle's parents spent the rest of their lives waiting for a phone call that never came. Tragically, both her mother and father passed away in the late 90s, taking the heavy burden of their daughter's unsolved murder to their graves. The case file grew dusty in the basement of the Cedar Rapids Police Department. But not everyone forgot. In 2006, cold case investigators Jim Pape and Matt Denlinger blew the dust off the file. They had a weapon that the original detectives could only dream of. CODIS, the FBI's national DNA database. They carefully extracted a complete, pristine male DNA profile from the blood on Michelle's dress. They uploaded it to the system, holding their breath for the computer to spit out a name. Beep. 0 matches. The killer had never been arrested for a felony in his life. He wasn't in the system. Once again, science had reached its limit, and the monster remained faceless. Fast forward to 2018. Detective Denlinger is edging closer to retirement. He refuses to leave his badge on the desk with Michelle's case still open. That's when a miracle happens. The world of true crime is turned upside down by the capture of the Golden State Killer, caught not by police records, but by something called genetic genealogy. Denlinger immediately partners with Parabon Nanolabs. Here is how brilliant this is. Instead of looking for the killer in a police database, the scientists take the killer's DNA and upload it to public ancestry websites, the exact same platforms you and I use to find out where our great-grandparents came from. The killer never took a DNA test, but he didn't have to, because his distant relatives did. Parabon's genealogists built a massive, sprawling family tree backward, tracing the killer's bloodline all the way to 4 sets of great-great-grandparents living in the 1800s. Slowly, painstakingly, they worked their way forward, branch by branch. They eliminated thousands of innocent cousins, until finally, the tree narrowed down to one specific family branch in Iowa. And on that branch, there were 3 brothers. One of them had bled inside that Buick 39 years ago. Police quietly tracked the brothers. Through discarded trash, they covertly tested the DNA of 2 of them. They weren't a match. That left only one man, Jerry Lynn Burns. Jerry Burns was 65 years old, a successful businessman. a father, a seemingly upstanding citizen who lived in Manchester, Iowa, just a 45-minute drive from the crime scene. For 39 years, he had lived a full, happy life, the exact life he stole from Michelle Martinko. Investigators needed his DNA to make an arrest, but they couldn't just ask for it. So, they watched him. On December 19th, 2018, exactly to the very day, the 39th anniversary of Michelle's murder, undercover detectives tailed Jerry Burns to a local pizza ranch. They sat just a few tables away, blending in with the lunch crowd. They watched him finish his meal, drink from his soda, and walk out the door. A detective casually walked over to the uncleared table, wearing gloves, and bagged the plastic straw Jerry had just drank from. They rushed it to the state crime lab. They compared the saliva on the straw to the blood from the dress. The result? A 1 in 290 billion match. They finally had him. When detectives brought Jerry Burns into the interrogation room, he played the confused old man. He denied knowing Michelle. But when they laid the DNA evidence on the table, the facade crumbled. The ghost had finally been dragged into the blinding light of justice. In February 2020, a jury took less than 3 hours to find Jerry Burns guilty of first-degree murder. The Golden Girl of Cedar Rapids finally got her justice, delivered by the relentless march of science and detectives who refused to forget her. If you are a criminal watching this, and you think you got away with it because it was a long time ago, look over your shoulder, because science is coming for you, and all it takes is a single drop of blood, a distant cousin, or a discarded plastic straw. If this 39-year journey for justice kept you on the edge of your seat, hit that subscribe button right now. We dive into the most mind-bending solved and unsolved mysteries every single week. And tell me down in the comments, do you think genetic genealogy should be used in every unsolved crime, or does it go too far with our privacy? Let's debate. I'll be replying to the first 100 comments.